All right, so let's listen to the voice together without any of the instruments, listening to the core three, what I call the core three are drums, bass, and vocals.
Tú tienes problemas y ya no, que yo estoy pa' todo y tú no. Dime si le damos, si metemos mano, donde no chequeamos y uno. Dime cuál es la vuelta más, actívate con la sativa, deja ya la...
That's the song. Everything else is just kind of ornaments, ear candy, the chords, the stabs, the sound effects. That right there is the song. Drums, bass, vocals. You get those three elements right on a pop genre music, man. You are on fire. You're like 90% there, all right? So let's dive in and see what we used on the lead vocal. And we're using saturation. Okay, so no surprises there, no compression. We're using saturation. Saturation at 100% sounds like this.
Tú tienes problemas y ya no, que yo estoy pa' todo y tú no. Dime si le damos, si metemos mano, donde no chequeamos y uno. Dime cuál es la vuelta más, actívate con la...
It really just pushes the voice out in front of the speakers. And we had that dialed, I can't recall. Oh, here we go. We have an undo button. Thank you, Dirk. Thank you for the undo button on this plugin. Next up, we're using a graphic EQ. Barely touching this thing. I mean, look at this. Scooping out a little bit of 300. 300 hertz is usually that part in the voice where it kind of builds up and gets a little bit muddy, especially if it's like a home recording. I don't know how this was recorded, but it sounds great. And then we're adding 4K, 9.5, and 19K. We're not making the voice brighter. Again, we're bringing out the detail in the voice. And that's why we're using these EQ settings. This is before.
Tú tienes problemas y ya no, que yo estoy pa' todo y tú no. Dime si le damos, si metemos mano, donde no chequeamos y uno. Dime cuál...
So we're slightly, adjusting the voice to fit. The heavy processing is not done on the individual channels. All the individual channels are going to a vocal group, which is this guy right here. And this is where all the heavy processing is done. So let me give you guys my secrets here. First off, a de-esser. The de-esser, similar to a limiter, is going to just catch those peaks. It's going to shave it off so that nothing is coming out too strong, all right?
Tú tienes problemas y ya no, que yo estoy pa' todo y tú no. Dime si le damos, si metemos mano, donde no chequeamos y uno. Dime cuál es la vuelta más, actívate.
And this is a dual band de-esser, so that means it's catching two separate frequencies. They're slightly coming on 1 or 3 dB, very gentle. That's followed up by a limiter, as I mentioned. It's just catching the peaks, making sure everything's in place. And then that goes into auto-tune. So even though there was some tuning done on the voice, it still needed to be a little bit heavier. And you have to communicate with the producer because, you don't want to ruin their vision of the mix. A good engineer can take an idea of a producer and enhance it. An amateur engineer, what I used to do when I started out was try to reinvent the wheel. And that's how you lose a lot of customers. So don't do that. So we're using auto-tune to just do that. And then the Mag EQ, again, not so much to make the voice brighter, is bringing up a little bit of the air using here the 20K boost at 8 dB, which is a lot. But really, it's that sense of just having more detail in the voice. And then lastly, a plugin. This is my secret weapon. I'll leave that till last. So let's hear that before and after, all right? This is before all the plugins.
Tú tienes problemas y ya no, que yo estoy pa' todo y tú no. Dime si le damos, si metemos mano, donde no chequeamos y uno. Dime cuál es la vuelta más, actívate con la sativa, deja ya la bobería por debajo y baja con el dembow. Que tú andas solo y yo también, mira, tú estás como un tren, déjame poner.
So with all the plugins engaged, you hear more of the throat, you hear more of the brightness, you hear more of the detail of the voice, more detail of his raspiness, of just the character and the nature of his voice. So, what is my secret weapon? Well, this is my secret weapon right here. A lot of times when I get deep into mixing and you're dealing with a lot of tracks and you bring in the piano and you bring in the sound effects and everything's fighting for that mid-range, again, trusty auto tones, you can hear only mid-range, you hear no bass and no super highs. But all the mid-range is just fighting for that attention. This is called dynamic equalizer. This allows me to smooth out that harshness on the voice, especially as it gets louder. And so with all the plugins prior to this, I'm kind of boosting, with the saturation with the EQ. But with this one, I am smoothing that mid-range out. And in fact, I'll solo that for you guys so you can hear that.
Tú tienes problemas ya no, que yo estoy pa' todo y tú no. Dime si le damos, si metemos mano, donde no chequeamos y uno. Dime cuál es.
So it's making the voice, the mid-range stand, so that when he's just going a little bit stronger, it's just smoothing that out so that it sounds pleasant, it's not piercing.
Que tú andas sola y yo también, mira, tú estás como un tren, déjame ponerte una de garbe. Yo sé que no soy perfecto, ay, yo sé que no soy lo que buscabas. Yo sé que no soy tu